Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class, which is taken from Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 40. We're fortunate this morning to have Her Grace Vrindavanesvari Radhika Mataji from ISKCON, Philadelphia, to give the class. Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Krishna, please accept my
All
obeisances. All
glories to
glories to
Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada. Good morning. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravaradari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravaradari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astatarasvata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astatarasvata His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem Sikhaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakan Radhakan Gitar Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mayapurdam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vrindavandam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jamuna Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Pramanande.
Hari Hari Bo.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hare Hare Bol.
Jai.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutalaye Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatati Shatarane Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayana Namaskrita Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Jatutaya Madirayat Nastaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Utamashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we're reading from the second canto, the 9th chapter. And this is verse 30, text number 30, and the name of the chapter is Answers Citing the Lord's Version. So I'll read this Sanskrit 3 times, and then we can take turns repeating. Prajāpatir dharma-patir ekadā niyamān yamān bhadraṁ prajānām anvicchann ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā, prajāpatir dharma-patir, ekadā niyamān yamān, bhadraṁ prajānām anvicchann, ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā, prajāpatir dharma-patir, ekadā niyamān yamān, bhadraṁ prajānām anvicchann, ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā. Would someone else like to chant?
Prajāpatir dharma-patir, ekadā niyamān, bhadraṁ prajānām anvicchann, ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Anyone else like to?
Prajāpatir dharma-patir, ekadā niyamān yamān, bhadraṁ prajānām, anvicchann, ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
प्रजापतिर धर्म पतिर एकदा नियमान यमान भद्रं प्रजानाम anvicchann ātiṣṭhat svārtha-kāmyayā.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll read word for word translation. Okay. Prajāpati, the forefather of all living entities. Dharma-patir, the father of religious life. Ekadā, once upon a time. Niyamān, rules and regulations. Yamān, principles of control. Bhadraṁ, welfare. Prajānām, of the living beings. Anvicchann, desiring. ātiṣṭhat, situated. Svārtha, own interest. Kāmyayā, so desiring. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahmā, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Purport. One cannot be situated in an exalted position without having undertaken a regulative life of rules and regulations. An unrestricted life of sense gratification is animal life, and Lord Brahmā, in order to teach all concerned within the jurisdiction of his generations, taught the same principles of sense control for executing higher duties. He desired the welfare of all his servants of God, and anyone desiring the welfare of the members of his family and generations must conduct a moral, religious life. The highest life of moral principles is to become a devotee of the Lord, because a pure devotee of the Lord has all the good qualities of the Lord. On the other hand, one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however qualified he may be in the mundane sense of the term, cannot be qualified with any good quality worthy of the name. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Brahmā, persons in the chain of disciplic succession, do not do anything to instruct their subordinates without acting accordingly themselves. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tashme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svadbadandikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Charaswami Niti Namani Snake Chaita Surpaneda Bhagwanam Jarasa Blutam Prabhupada Gata Prananam Bhakti Charapadam. So I'll read the translation again. Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahmā, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. So today's verse, when I was preparing for this class, brought up a couple of thoughts. One of is that Lord Brahmā is setting the example. He is the ultimate progenitor of all of Vedic wisdom and Vedic knowledge. And he is in our sampradaya. We are in the Brahma sampradaya. So he's in our sampradaya. So he's also the progenitor of all that comes through in our disciplic succession. And so with Lord Brahmā, setting that example, he is making it clear that one cannot be in such an exalted position unless one is actually doing these things themselves. And this is something that we hear a lot about, be the example, right? The teacher has to be to set the example. The teacher has to be the example. We have to embody the teachings ourselves before we can really start going out and preaching to others. Physician, heal thyself, right? So we see this not only just in the role of a teacher, but also in the role of a healer and many other aspects of life. We look to someone who is in an elevated position. We look to them for setting up the example that we should be living by. In the spiritual world, in this Vedic society, we have teachers all around, and we hope and expect that they are living to the same principles that they are propounding. And so this is something that we can see also in Kali Yuga, that this does not happen so often. And Prabhupada refers to them as the show bottle spiritualists. We have the ones that are all for show, that don't actually do the things that are proper for spiritual life. They are all about just putting themselves out there. It's ego based. It's for money, perhaps for attention, but it's not in the authentic path of attaining spiritual advancement and attaining a deep relationship with God. So in those behaviors, we might see someone that is putting on a show, the show bottle spirituals, who are putting on a show, but there's nothing behind it. In the old Western term, there's a terminology that you may have heard, and I grew up with this term. I grew up in the country, and it's all hat, no cattle. And it's really that they're all show, but they have nothing behind it, right? So this concept of making sure that Lord Brahma, he knows that he is the father of all Vedic knowledge and Vedic understanding in terms of how it's coming down through the disciplic succession. He knows he has to follow regulative life. He knows that this is part of his duty and responsibility to set that example. And as I mentioned, in preparing for this class for today, a couple of concepts came to mind that I wanted to expand upon. One is the controlling the senses and controlling our material desires. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, verse 20, chapter 37, verse 6, it says here, one has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. And here, Prabhupada in his purport talks about the yamān. The yamān is the controlling the senses through strict regulation. And this yamān is something that is in that yoga system, the Patanjali yoga system, but it's also part of our process as well. Our process of bhakti yoga is using our regulative principles as a way to bring about more control of our senses. So we know that in our path within ISKCON, there is the 4 regulative principles. And these are also known as the 4 legs of Dharma. These are the 4 principles of freedom, are sometimes referred to, because the regulative principles we hear as kind of a negative, right? Things that we shouldn't do. And that's okay for sometimes for the more rebellious spirit. Telling someone what they shouldn't do doesn't always land well. And so but it's really important that we don't just see the regulative principles as something we should not do, that we see the regulative principles as things we are aspiring toward. And I think when we start really looking at the 4 regulative principles, and these are the 4 legs of Dharma. So they're 4 for a reason. They're not just arbitrarily 4 regulative principles. These are the 4 legs of Dharma. So these are things that are important for one to progress in one's spiritual life. These are things that are meant to help us in our process. So I actually came across this really nice grid that I wanted to share with you. And so in the first one, which is austerity. So austerity is something that we think of as this moderation, right? The four legs of Dharma are austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So when we think about the four regulative principles, these austerities of taking out any intoxicants, right? This is an austerity. It's an austerity, but it is a quality that can help clear our minds. And so when we think about, let's just focus on this one for a minute, for this regulation, this withdrawing a little bit from the material senses, what do intoxicants, especially, I'm going to really harp on alcohol and drugs specifically. What those do is they cloud our minds. So these chemicals really pollute our brain, and they close us down. They prevent us from really being able to see things clearly. And so this is an austerity because ultimately we want to have a healthy outlook. We want to have a healthy vision, clarity. And when we take on intoxicants, right? So this is no drinking, no intoxication. All of these things are meant to keep our minds clear. And they help us with not getting too deep in the mode of ignorance or in the mode of passion. And we can see when someone who is on drugs, they're not in their right mind. If they're someone who is taking alcohol, they become more in the mode of ignorance, right? They may be speaking just very freely, and saying, speaking things that are not pleasant for the ear. They're not truth sometimes, or maybe they're too much truth. Maybe they're just overly expressing themselves. So these are things that we can see from the intoxicants. So the healthy symptoms, and this grid gives us some of the things that can come about. The healthy symptoms are people are more understanding, they're more tolerant, they are satisfied with the simple pleasures in life. So this is a healthy symptom of the counterpart to no intoxication is austerity, right? And so these are, so this is given as a, hey, don't take intoxicants, okay? The next one is cleanliness. So these are, again, this is another leg of Dharma. It's also the one of the regulative principles of freedom, but it's the regulative, or the four regs of cleanliness is also illicit sex life. So here it's really looking to say, okay, illicit sex means all kinds of things, right? Too many partners. This can bring about disease. It can just bring about a lack of cleanliness, being out there in the world, different people coming into your space. So too much lustiness. So this the cleanliness component is that we want to strive for cleanliness. We want to strive to be clean, not in just our bodies, but in our minds and our hearts. When we're very lusty, when we're overly desirous of another person or things in life, then our mind becomes, again, very polluted. And things become very focused on a more base level. We're not seeking that higher taste anymore, because we're just following the bodily instincts and the bodily drives and desires versus actually following something that brings us to a cleaner place, and not just our bodies, but in our minds and our hearts. So the key here is to really just maintain good, healthy marriage, to maintain single partner. So these are this is another side of that, for the four regulative principles, because Lord Brahma was keep maintaining the regulative principles of spiritual life. So like I said, it's important that we understand the full context of them. So in the next leg of Dharma, and we can say the counterpoint to what we know as the four regs is mercy. What is mercy? Mercy is really ultimately having not doing any harm. This is ahimsa, right? Now, doing harm to other living entities can be starting off as vegetarianism, right? Vegetarianism is an excellent starting point. Although even plants feel pain, even harm is brought to plants. So we try and minimize the harm that we're doing. Is being here in the material energies, being here in this middle planet of the planetary systems. No matter what we do, harm will come in some form or fashion. But we want to try and be ultimately aware of the harm that we are bringing to others. When we are bringing harm to plant life because we're eating plants, we want to make sure we're offering it to the Lord. So it's an offering. And so this is hopefully taking that mercy and offering everything that we're eating to the Lord. So this takes that to another level. We're not just vegetarian, because vegetarian brings harm. But we are vegetarians that are now offering everything to the Lord. The only way vegetarianism doesn't really bring harm is if we become fruitarians, which is not always sustainable, but because we're just taking the fruit of the tree versus killing the plants. But having mercy, not bringing harm, goes beyond that, right? We want to practice ahimsa even in the way we're interacting with one another. So when we think about the four regulative principles, sometimes we just get so zeroed in on, okay, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, right? But it's more than that. That's just the starting point. When we're talking about, mercy, when we're talking about the vegetarian life, what we're talking about is kindness to others. And that kindness comes through not just in what we put on our plate, but it comes through in how we're interacting with the world. And sometimes even in our act, in our desire to help someone, we might actually be hurting them. If we've ever tried to guide someone, but it's actually can be the wrong thing. It can cause harm to someone by giving them the wrong piece of advice, our best laid intentions, right? So we want to be very aware of how we are interacting with the world and how we are trying to help people, because this also, the mercy that we think we're showing might actually also be creating difficulties for someone because we think it's best for them. Doesn't mean that that's what's truly best for them. Only Krishna knows that. So, we can have the intention that something is being done in the mood of mercy, but Krishna's the one that and pure devotees can really, are the only ones that can really truly deliver mercy. So we have to just try our hardest by starting with no meat eating, but also thinking about, we offer our food, but thinking about how we are also interacting with others. And then the last one is truthfulness. And this is expressed in our four regulative principles as no gambling. We know that what happens in gambling, there's lying and there's cheating and stealing. If anyone's ever witnessed any kind of like gambling or poker or anything like that, there's lack of truthfulness there. There's always lack of truthfulness. And we know that even in when the Kurus and the Pandavas were playing the dice game, there was lying and cheating happening there. So this extends this concept of don't gamble. This is beyond not gambling. This is about having higher values of truthfulness, of having a good career that's not based on ripping someone off or bait and switch kind of product. So we want to make sure that this truthfulness is involved. Now, the four legs of Dharma the bull, each one of these legs was lost, and we're down to just wobbling on one leg here in Kali Yuga. And so we are left with just this very precarious concept of truthfulness here in Kali Yuga, which we know is really not not there. We see lying, cheating, stealing all around us constantly. And so the four regulative principles, like I said, are there to really help us be more connected to the positives of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. So I wanted to dive into a little bit more about Lord Brahma's journey here and his he is the father of religiousness. He is situating himself in the regulative principles. And this actually reminded me of a verse in Bhagavad Gita. And this is in Bhagavad Gita 258. The translation is one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense object as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. And I'll read Prabhupada's purport here. The test of a yogi, devoted or self-realized soul, is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's, just like what we talked about with the four principles. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the don'ts, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment is not possible. It is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up its senses and exhibit them again at any time for the particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna is being taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of for his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps his senses within. So this is very instructive for us, material soul, or in the material energies, the jivas, for us to understand that our senses, if we allow our senses to just drag us around, then we're lost, right? We'll never get to that point of Krishna consciousness. And we have our senses. We have the sense of smell, taste, hearing, touch, the false ego. These are all part of what takes us into other areas that take us away from Krishna consciousness. And when we start to try and bring them closer to Krishna, that's where we really get the benefit. When those senses are turned in the direction of when it's turned in the direction of the of our purpose, of our path forward, which is Krishna consciousness. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was today was something that there was a concept that just kept ringing in my mind, this concept of niyamān. And this is an important concept, and it's actually brought up in the Nectar of Instruction. And in text 2, there's this concept of niyamān. And I won't read the whole translation, but it's text 2, but it's principle number 4. And I think niyamān is really an important concept because it goes into understanding that of how we are practicing these regulations. So the quote is, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. This is called niyamagraha. And what does that actually mean, right? So what is niyamagraha and what is that saying to you? So here I'm going to read you a little bit of the translation. Accepting, or this is Prabhupada's purport, excuse me. Accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit as utilitarian advocate is called niyamagraha. And neglecting the rules and regulations of the Shastra, which are meant for spiritual development, is called niyamagraha. So there's one's accented, one's not. The word agraha means eagerness to accept, and agraha means failure to accept. So it's interesting. It's almost the same word. By the addition of either of these two words to the niyama, rules and regulations, the word niyamagraha is formed. Thus, niyamagraha has a twofold meaning that is understood according to the particular combination of words. Those interested in Krishna consciousness should not be eager to accept rules and regulations for economic advancement, yet they should very faithfully accept scriptural rules and regulations for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. They should strictly follow the regulative principles by avoiding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. One should also avoid association with Mayavadis who blaspheme Vaishnavas. Desires to expand the mind for perfecting, So desires to expand the mind by perfecting mystic yoga, merging in the existence of Brahma, or attaining whimsical material prosperities are included within the category of greed. So let's jump down for a minute. But accepting the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit as a utilitarian advocate. So this is something where it's saying if we're just taking on the rules and regulations because we want to get some gain out of it, but we're not doing it authentically for the purpose of attaining Krishna consciousness. There might be some deep austerity that one is taking by taking the rules and regulations, but there's not devotion behind it. There's nothing behind it. Conversely, someone might completely reject the rules and regulations and say, I'm not doing that. So neither one of those are good. We have to be in the space of taking on the rules and regulations because we have a desire to progress in our Krishna consciousness. And this is the prescription. I was talking to someone the other day about this concept of how we progress in our spiritual life. And if we want to, there are many different paths out there. We can all accept that. There are many different ways to God, many different paths forward to God. Some people like to take on here and take on here and take on here and take on there, but it might not always be that it's going to confuse things, right? So if we want to progress in having a relationship with Krishna, with God, then it would be best to pick one, right? And when we pick that path, then that path forward has certain processes that are mapped out for us to make progress on that path, right? And Prabhupada uses this example so often that, if one wants to become a doctor, they don't just walk into a hospital and start performing surgery because they saw someone do it or they heard about it, right? Or read a book. They have to go through an extensive training process through medical school and an internship and their residency. So there's a pretty lengthy process for someone to be able to walk into a hospital and perform surgery. To a lesser degree, in the sense of the material understanding, yes, we're not trying to be doctors, but in a greater degree in terms of our long-term prospects for Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, if we want to progress in a relationship, and this is a personal choice, and this is where it comes down to, we don't have to. We can just continue to get stuck in the cycle of birth and death and continue to suffer But if we want to get out, break free from the repeated cycle of birth and death, then we need to follow a path that gives us the instruction forward in that path. And that's what we have here. Prabhupada has given us all of these steps. The rules and regulations are part of that. They've come down through Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma has given us all of these things. He's shown us through the disciplic succession, through the pure devotees that have come through that disciplic succession. All of these things are there to help us to progress toward that goal, if that's our goal. And it is the goal of the spirit soul. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but it's true. It is that is the goal. It's just for many of us, it might be covered over. The spirit soul, its nature is to be connected in a loving relationship with the Lord. That's the nature, but it's so covered over by the material energies that we don't always identify that as the goal. So, and even if we're here coming in this space of Krishna consciousness, coming to Bhagavad class, maybe we still may not be clear of that is our goal. We might intellectualize it and say, yes, that's my goal, but we may still not be ultra clear that this is what I'm feeling. This is my goal to progress in a relationship with the Lord. But we have the process to get there if we choose to follow that. So we have the four regulative principles of freedom. And I'll go through them one more time just as a refresher. So austerity, which is no intoxication. Cleanliness is no illicit sex. Mercy is very basic of vegetarianism, but even beyond that. And truthfulness is no gambling. So this is when we understand why these things are in place, not just the negatives, but we understand the counterpoint, which is all of the benefits that we're really aiming for through these regulative principles. Perhaps it gives more context and can help one feel more at ease and feel more connected to taking steps in that direction of the regulative principles. So I will take a pause here and see if there's any insights, questions, corrections, anything that anyone would like to share.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for very nice lecture explaining the regulative principles, the austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, and connecting them to the regulative principles, basically gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, no meat eating, and so on. Yeah, that's always, personally, every time I hear those two sets or four things connected, I feel reminded about what it is like to be a devotee, So it's very, very, very good that you brought it up. And I'm sure it's good for the devotees, other devotees too. Even if you haven't heard it before, that there is a link between the regulative principles that we actually vow to live by when we get initiated, which is the no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. And then there is these four pillars also: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And they are connected. This time, this lecture, you've heard how they're connected. So thank you very much for bringing it up for us. Dear devotees, this is the time to unmute yourself, ask questions. And dear Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, dear Krishna.
Unmute yourself, Prabhu. Your hand is up, so I'm assuming you...
Sorry. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji, for this. Like Prabhu said, wonderful points and reminding us what really these four regulative principles means and how they are tied up with the Vedic teachings. And not only the meaning in the gross sense as it is, but also how subtly we have to also go beyond, like when we talk about no gambling. It means also no cheating, no in our behavior, no untruthfulness in our behavior. So those subtle qualities that sometimes we miss. Thank you for that good reminder, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's important. And I think when people come to ISKCON, they might be a little intimidated when, and it happens, someone walks in the door and then suddenly they start hearing about these 4 regulative principles and they're like, hey, whoa, that's strict, and they might turn around and walk right back out the door.
Yeah, it's happened.
It's happened, right? I know, we've all seen it happen.
I remember very well.
Absolutely, Mataji. A lot of people just leave and they come once to Bhakti Vrikshas or Namatas, and second time, if we bring up by any chance these regulative principles, they are nowhere to be seen next time.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we, by reinforcing the positives, that these are the goals, it's like we're more so focusing on the positive sides. Like I said, most people don't want to be told what they shouldn't do. No matter how sincere of a seeker they might be, if someone says don't do this, they're especially adults, even children do that too. We all know anyone that has children or been around a lot of children, you tell them something they shouldn't do, what do? They go running toward it. So it's a very a tricky thing to navigate. But it's the nature. It's the nature of the human mind to be slightly rebellious. That's how we all ended up here, is because we were rebellious. We wanted to live separately from the Lord. That is rebellious. We wanted to experience the material energy. So we all have that rebellious nature in us to and so remembering that when we're interacting with other people that are maybe newer, and even people that've been around for a while, it's important to have mercy and compassion, right? Because that could be doing harm to someone, to be coming right out of the gate like do. These are the things you shouldn't. Oh, you shouldn't be eating meat, or you shouldn't be doing that. And someone's like, hey, wait, I was raised this way. I don't know. Like, okay, let me think about it. Hold on, and it can come across very strong to people when they just get there. And so with the mercy and compassion, to be able to help people not so much focus on those restrictions, but to help them focus their energy on the Lord, and understanding the process to be that in order to help ourselves come closer to the Lord, that there is a purificatory process that we can gradually advance on. And so when we focus more on helping introduce people to the Lord through the process of just reading Bhagavad Gita, or just being a kind person, and giving them space to, find their path, and giving them the tools if they're so interested, that we have the tools here available to them. But because that's I've experienced, and I've read also through Prabhupada, that ahimsa can also be interfering negatively in someone's spiritual path, and we can create harm unknowingly by doing that. Even if we think, that's what I was saying, even if we sometimes think we're helping someone, sometimes we might be hurting them. If someone runs right back out the door again, that's harmful to them, because they are at a place where they could be benefiting, but because of the way someone may have approached them with something very strong, that they ran right back out the door. And so these concepts of loving someone and not showing mercy is like I said, it's more than just vegetarianism. So I just wanted to bring that out to for a reminder for myself too. Like, everyone has their path forward, but there's the positives that we want to really we're striving toward that.
Thank you very much. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking about so many things. I mean, a couple of things just stand out. And I talk about my own self when I first came into Krishna consciousness. Our backgrounds are different, but everybody comes from different backgrounds, and there's some things they're not used to. So my own experience and just like to share it so people can be a little more sensitive to it. So I was in this room, wasn't it? Well, that the house and the living room had been turned into a temple. Dr. Jeremiah lived there, and it was also the place that they preached. So I heard him on a radio show, and they told us where the address was. I was very impressed by what I heard on the radio. So I came. And Saturday morning, I was asked to come back and preaching Bhagavad Gita, and everybody was sitting on the floor, meaning lotus posture. Now, from a Christian background, we never do this cross-legged thing. My whole life, I've never, and my legs simply aren't cooperating. So I'm trying to sit cross-legged, and I'm suffering. And you know what I thought? I said, I'm going to survive this, and when I walk out, I'm never going to come back to this place. Over just sitting cross-legged because I was hurting. I have to find God somewhere else, but this is just too much cross-legged like that. Now, turns out that Bhakti Maharaj, I found out later on, he's quite blessed with metaphysical abilities also. So in the middle of his lecture, he stopped and said, give this guy a chair to sit down. And that's what saved me. So they gave me a chair, I sat down, and I stayed. And if I hadn't, that would have been the end of it. So, that's why it's for everybody, when we come, now I'm appealing to what I'm going to say next. When new devotees come to the temple, there are certain people that talk to them, and it's based on the cultural background of the person that's coming in. A person as American, it doesn't live the lifestyle of a person who was brought up in India. So a new American coming in, and you're in Indian body, and you think you can actually convince them, you're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, because you really don't know them. So that's why it's important, and I'm appealing to everybody that sometimes when you see new people in the temple and you try to talk to them and they would pull you aside and say, no, don't do that. That's why, because you don't understand their culture yet. And I don't talk to Indian people either because I wasn't raised there. So, and this is the reality of the situation. At first, they are not in the spiritual mode, they are in the material mode. They come like that. But so later on, they understand, you're not the body, a little bit is going in, but then you can merge it a little better. So with this, I just wanted to put it out for everybody.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. No, I thank you for sharing that. And I know when I came too, like, everyone was trying to put me in a sari. And I was like, I don't want to wear a sari. I'm not Indian. And it was just such a big thing for a couple of years. I was like, hey man, like nice philosophy, but I'm not wearing a sari. Like I'm a country girl, grew up on a farm. I'm not putting a sari on. And it's funny because when I met my Guru Maharaj for the very first time, I brought that up and I was like tearful. I was like, Maharaj, I was like, everyone's trying to get me to dress a certain way, and it's uncomfortable for me. I don't even know how to wrap this thing, and I could try, but I don't want to. It's not me. And he just looked at me. He was very sincere, and he said, you don't have to wear a sari to be Krishna conscious. He's like, that is material. He's like, that is nothing to do with your Krishna consciousness. He's like, if your heart is sincere, what you wear is just dressing. And of course, eventually I ended up learning how to wear a sari and became fine with it down the road. But it was his mercy, ultimately, because he was so kind. And he was like, you don't have to wear a sari to be Krishna conscious. And he was so kind to me in that way. And I'll never forget that. And I knew at that moment, I was like, I was like, this is my guru. Like I knew I had found him because he was just so merciful to me. And so yeah, it's thank you for sharing, Prabhu, what your experience as well, because I think it's that mercy, for people, especially when they're new. If that mercy is not there, and there's so many things that seem like barriers to entry, if someone doesn't show a little bit of mercy and it's kind-hearted to say, this person's suffering, like, he clearly is having difficulty sitting. And, if this person's walking in the door and they feel completely overwhelmed because no one's speaking English, or, the deities in the front seem very strange to them, but they came here for some reason. Someone please help this person, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Also, while on the subject, um, when we are around each other during prajānām time, and the devotees are just, talking and eating, and then you got somebody that's new among, the person is new, and he doesn't know much of these Sanskrit words that we take for granted, like service, we say, oh, seva, and all of this. And so we throw all of these Sanskrit words into our English, and this person is totally lost. They don't know what they're talking about. So again, we have to be very sensitive. I know in Baltimore, there was one group of people who were very impressed with something that had happened outside with the devotees in Baltimore. And so they came in, there were three of them, white body, young people. They came in Sunday afternoon lecture. And the devotee that was speaking spoke all the common Sanskrit words that had English translations to them, but he never used them. He uses, and I was looking at them. I was not the temple room at that time. I was visiting. And I could see they were just totally confused. And unfortunately, at the end of the lecture, they had to go for, we all had to go for prajānām. They didn't even stay for that. They walked out of the door and they were gone. So, so these little things, they seem little, but it makes a huge difference in visitors and new people that come in.
Yeah, absolutely. It so much does. We're missing, we're gonna miss opportunities with new people over and over and over and over again, unless we start to really recognize those differences of people walking in the door. And Shane had a nice comment here. I'm gonna read that. He just wrote, thank you for a wonderful class. It's so nice to hear how all the principles relate to the four pillars. It's easy for new people like myself to possibly look at 1 and 2 and think, is this one really that important? I can break this one, but they all need to be eventually be followed to bring us closer to Krishna. Shane, absolutely. Like the thing is that, and this is just my feeling on it, but my experience, I'll share with my experience, is that as we have a deeper and deeper desire to know the Lord, and as we practice, and I'll say that first and foremost, that developing some sort of sadhana, we prescribe chanting on beads. This is something that we prescribe, but developing a daily sadhana is the one thing that will most likely help you clear through some of those things. And it may not happen this year, next year, and 10 years. But this sadhana is a foundational work. And also, spending time with people that have already very easily let go of some of those things, that are just very at peace, and at ease in their practice. And so that's is the association. So it's the sadhana and the association. But you're absolutely right. It can feel, I felt that way. I know. I mean, there were times I was just early on, especially, I was like, I'm going to take this at my own stride. I'm going to do my best and, find my way to it, as it feels balanced for me. And the thing is that Krishna's in each one of our hearts as Chaitya Guru. And Chaitya Guru is there to guide each and every individual, because every individual is coming with their own karma. They're coming with their own emotional baggage, their own traumas in life, their own experiences. And only Krishna knows how to guide that spirit soul closer when the spirit soul shows sincerity and wanting to make an endeavor in that relationship. Krishna sees the sincerity. Krishna sees the desire to have that relationship, and then Krishna will help facilitate things for that particular person to help them progress in their Krishna consciousness. And so the devotees can be there as a support network to provide that, but each one of us, each devotee is also on their own path, and Krishna and has their own karma and has their own trauma and their own emotional baggage that they are, so no matter how advanced, or how many years in the movement they may be, or how few years they might be, everyone still has their own things they're working through. And so as Chaitya Guru is the one that ultimately is helping to make that decision for that individual, but it's the devotees, hopefully, that there's a strong, loving, devotional network of people that can provide the sounding board and the encouragement for each individual as they're coming onto the path. So thank you, Shane, for your comment, because it's very real and it's very hard. Yeah, keep coming to class. Keep what you're doing, Shane. It's nice to be here. So
Hare Krishna. And thank you, Abhinavnesh, for the comment that you made, that you said, see, you made a strong decision. You're the kind of person that can look at a situation and decide what they're going to do about it. You said you're going to take it in your own stride to, develop in this, because there wasn't everything, not like, when you hear so much, you say, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to stop this, and all of a sudden I'm going to be a very different person now overnight. That doesn't work that way. So yeah, that's why the Prabhupada actually says we should chant, dance, and have prajānām.
mm-hmm.
That's the easy thing to do. Chant, dance, that is kirtan, and have prajānām. And some of the big names, including Tamara Krishna Goswami, they actually admitted it was the dancing and the prajānām that brought them, that made them stay in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Then the rest would come later as be able to deal with it. Many people came, they were not, vegetarians. When I came, I was still eating, but I was trying to stay away from chicken and the rest of them. But when I came to Krishna consciousness, there was still fish left to have to get rid of.
Yeah, I was still trying to get fish out of my diet. Yeah, and eggs. Eggs was the hard one.
Yeah. So it took a while. I mean, I took a vegetarian class and 4 Saturdays in a row, and the second Saturday was Mataji, the devotee, that taught us, challenged us after the first Saturday. He said, for next Saturday, bring your favorite dish. Not make the dish, but write the ingredients that go in the recipe that goes into your favorite dish, and bring it. And we're going to make a vegetarian counterpart to that.
I love that. That's fun. I did that in cooking classes too.
So I brought the dishes I like, African dishes I like very much. And that was the day she introduced tofu, TVP, gluten, and they all replaced the meat and the chicken. So at a finished format, then I realized after that class, I'm going to be able to do this. So it's just this change. I'm not going to miss out on the taste of it though, right? So it does in fact work, but the approach was very good. My god sister now, she made it, and she was a very good cook too. So after the class, she would take us out to the kitchen and then make prasad right in front of us. It was very tasty. So it was very convincing.
I love it. Yeah, this is, it's that sincerity, right? You were like, I want to do this. I just don't know how, and I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you everyone for contributing today and for sharing. And any other last comments or feedback before we start our Tuesday here?
Anybody?
Great.
If not, okay, well, thank you very much. This has been a wonderful class. Brought back memories too.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So, okay. So, have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of the week. Vanchakalpatarubhishya kripa sindhuvevacha patitānam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila ki jai.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go Srila Prabhupada.